In 1984, the CIA recorded a session with a psychic, a trained remote viewer. The task, to describe a set of coordinates. The viewer was blind. He didn't know what the coordinates referred to. He didn't know when they referred to. But what he described defied logic. He saw pyramids, massive stone structures, tall, thin beings in shelters waiting for some cataclysm to pass. And to be clear, this wasn't science fiction. It's sitting right now in the CIA's own reading room, Declassified, verbatim. A document labeled Mars Exploration, May 22nd, 1984. Here's what we know. The viewer was working as part of Project Stargate, a classified program for psychic intelligence gathering. We recently put out a video on the subject. Subscribers flooded our inbox with requests for more details, so here we go. The monitor gave the remote viewer a sealed envelope with a set of geographic coordinates: 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west, but he wasn't told anything else. The viewer sat back, cleared his mind, and then the monitor instructed him, I want you to focus on the coordinates I've provided you and use your remote viewing abilities to explore the location, not just in space, but in time, approximately 1 million years BC. I want you to go to the following coordinates on the planet Mars. I want you to go back to the time indicated. I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. Let me tell you a little bit more about what happened. What followed is one of the strangest transcripts ever declassified by the United States government. Page after page, the viewer describes an ancient collapsing civilization, enormous structures buried in the sand, tall beings who evacuated their cities, and a sense of watching a world die in slow motion. This was no creative writing exercise. This was a monitored intelligence session. It was logged, time-stamped, and filed away. For 16 years, this document was classified until it was quietly released in the year 2000 with no public explanation. There was no disclaimer, no commentary, just there, take it or leave it. So tonight, we're going to do what the CIA never did. We're going to walk through that transcript, line by line, vision by vision, and ask the question, what exactly did this psychic see on Mars 1 million years ago? And probably more importantly, why did the government ask? Coming up, the session begins, and within minutes, the viewer sees something the CIA still won't explain. The remote viewing session began with a standard protocol. The monitor, referred to only as number 8, instructed the subject to focus on a first set of coordinates: 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west. Now that location today, if mapped, lies near Cydonia Mensae. It's a region of Mars made infamous for the so-called Face of Mars photograph from the Viking mission. You may remember it, but the viewer didn't know that. He didn't know he was even targeting Mars. And yet, and I quote, I'm seeing, it's like a perception of a shadow of people, very tall, thin. It's only a shadow. It's as if they were there and they're not there anymore. This wasn't an abstract impression. The viewer immediately began describing people, tall and thin, but not alive. He said, they're ancient people. They're dying. It's past their time or age. And he wasn't describing aliens. He was describing ghosts of some lost civilization. As the session continued, the viewer was asked to move forward in time, to follow the coordinates through millennia, and what he saw next is chilling. I'm looking at huge, large obelisks, pyramids, like shelters from storms, all completely eroded. He adds, they're like fallout shelters. These things are buried deep to escape some kind of global environmental disaster. Again, let's be clear. This wasn't a dream or a meditation. It was a monitored CIA experiment run under Project Centerlane, a branch of the Stargate program. And there's no record of the viewer being told anything about Mars, pyramids, or civilizations. That's what makes this so strange. At one point, the viewer describes a violent environmental event, dust storms, sudden wind, and then finally atmospheric loss. He said, there's a shifting of the atmosphere, a movement of cloud and gas. It's getting colder. They're losing their environment. Then the viewer is directed to look inside the structures. He said, and I quote, I see people. They're trying to find a way to survive. They look for another place to go. Another place to go. This is where it gets even stranger. Later in the session, the monitor gives the viewer a new instruction. Now I want you to go to a different point in space, where the people you're seeing have gone. The viewer's response? It looks like a large, very rounded metallic object. It's a ship. They're sleeping inside in hibernation. He describes them traveling in stasis, looking for a new world. And the most unsettling part? He says they never made it. Next, we finish reading the CIA's own transcript and ask, why would a US intelligence agency ask a psychic to view Mars a million years ago? And why keep the results hidden for 16 years? We left off with the psychic describing tall, thin beings on Mars. The world was collapsing. There are cities buried beneath dust and wind, but the session wasn't actually over. The CIA monitor then asked the subject to follow these beings to find out where they went and whether they survived. What the viewer described next may be the strangest part of all. He said they're looking for a way to get out, to go to a different place to preserve what's left of their kind. The monitor then gave the subject new coordinates, ones not publicly listed. A second location described only as the new place. The viewer describes an object in deep space. It's like a rounded, shiny structure, a metallic boat or vehicle. They're inside, sleeping. They're in some kind of hibernation, suspended. They're waiting for rescue. These beings, according to the viewer, left Mars in search of refuge, but they didn't find it. They went into hibernation and were never woken up. What's striking in the transcript isn't just the visuals, it's the emotion. As the session nears its end, the viewer's language becomes mournful, subdued, even poetic. They're a dying race. They know it. They just want to be left alone. They send out messages, but no one answers. This was not speculation. This was a government-assigned psychic intelligence session, and it reads kind of like in a tragic obituary of a civilization that no longer exists. And then the most cryptic line of all. The monitor asks, do you sense any contact with other intelligences? Any knowledge of what happens to them? The viewer replied, they're waiting for something, or maybe someone. Something was supposed to come, but never arrived. They were waiting, and no one came. Let's take a step back. Why would the Central Intelligence Agency task a viewer to observe Mars a million years ago? There's no record this was a psychological test. There's no mention of it being an imagination trial. In fact, the session was formally archived under Project Centerlane No. 3, Mars Exploration. They asked a psychic to view an ancient Mars location and logged it alongside real operations used to track Soviet bases and downed aircraft. The transcript was classified for 16 years. It wasn't released until 2000, long after the program had supposedly ended. There was no comment from the agency, nothing. No follow-up, no scientific explanation, nada. So, did the psychic see ruins from a time before us? Was it pure coincidence, or something we don't understand yet? Did the government take it seriously and pursue it further, maybe under a different name? Or did they learn something they couldn't allow the public to know? We may never know what really happened to those tall, thin beings, but we know what the CIA was asking, and we know what the viewer saw, because it's right there in their own files, big as Dallas. The transcript ends there. No resolution, no analysis, just a record of what the viewer saw and the quiet termination of the session. But what came next is just as strange. There's no notation on the document suggesting it was fictionalized, no claim that it was part of an imagination experiment or simulation. Instead, it was filed away, stamped, and classified, and then buried. The document remained sealed for over 16 years. It wasn't released until 2000, when the CIA declassified over 12,000 pages of materials released to Project Stargate, Centerlane, and Sunstreak. Among those pages was this Mars exploration session labeled Approved for Release, dated May 11th, 2000. But here's the part that no one seems to talk about. No official ever commented on this session. No rebuttal, no attempt to explain why a US intelligence agency would have a psychic describe ancient Mars. Nothing. It was just there, waiting for someone to notice. Since its release, this transcript has fueled decades of speculation. Some believe it's proof the government knew more about Mars than they let on and were looking for ancient signs of life. Others say it was part of a classified cognitive experiment, testing how far human perception could reach through non-local consciousness. Got that? But a few suggest something deeper, that this wasn't the only session like this, that there are others still classified, and that Project Stargate never truly ended. Think about it. If a psychic viewer could describe massive pyramids buried beneath Martian dust, tall humanoid beings preparing for extinction, a ship in space waiting for help that never came, all without ever being told that they were even viewing Mars, then I suppose we have to ask, what else did they see? And what sessions never made it out to the public? What if this was never about proof? What if it was about contact? And what if they found something they never wanted us to understand? I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. If this episode left you asking more questions than you had before, that's a good thing. It means you're paying attention. Please like, subscribe, and dig deeper because we've only scratched the surface. Thanks for watching.